It's not good.
What's not good?
Not a good thing.
I mean, there's a lot of good things here.
No, it's oh wait, I'm doing De Niro. I'm sorry.
Welcome back to the TowerCast podcast, the towering podcast for the towering filmmakers of El Paso and the world. We're so excited today. This is going to be a really great episode. Before we introduce our awesome guest today, I want to introduce my co-host, John Eric Castro.
Hello, fellas.
And we also have Michael De La O, our producer, trusty producer, commenting.
Hello again.
Lastly, we also have Austin Young, making sure we're sounding great in the background there.
He's going to say one word. There we go.
And today we have a very special guest. I mean, he does it all. He's a journalist. You may have seen him on the news broadcasts every day. But he's also, and more importantly to us, he's a filmmaker who has a lot of heart and has a lot of dedication for his craft. And, you know, without further ado, we have Mr. Robert Holguin on the podcast today.
Yes, sir.
Welcome on.
Thank you. Thanks. Great to be on. This is exciting. You guys have an awesome setup. I love that it's going to be this many people in the conversation.
Yeah. We try to do like a little roundtable type deal. You know, in our experience, I try to focus more on writing, directing, and that's kind of my bag. John Eric Castro is an awesome actor, and he's our guy for that. And De La O's an awesome cameraman, cinematographer, lighting. I mean, he just does it all. And Austin,
in the last 2 weeks, he's been a little off. But
Austin's been my producing partner for all the films we've done with Tower. So as a producer and an editor, he's just the best. So we all try to get our input and just ask filmmakers what we're curious about on their front.
Austin got me through college, man. He helped me.
Edited all of our projects combined, man. Just so but you know, Robert, we've met in different film events, and you're always present and you're always willing to talk to filmmakers. And I always like to kick off the podcast with kind of how I remember we met and stuff. So I remember when we were at the El Paso Film Festival, we got to go to this after party with Robert Rodriguez. And I remember Daniel. Shout out to Daniel. He's one of our guys in Tower. He's an editor there at KFox with you.
That's right.
And Daniel was like, "Hey man, like, have you guys met Robert yet? You guys should meet. We should introduce you guys to him." And I thought, yeah, of course. And then obviously Jason Carranza, who knows you as well, he was like, "Yeah, I can't believe you guys haven't met yet. Let's go. He's over there, so let's meet him." And he introduced us, and man, like right away we got to talking about films, and we got to talking about not just the films at the film festival that we had just left, but also the 2-day challenge, because you had a film there, we had a film there, and I gotta say your film was hilarious, man. I mean, it was just a great experience to see it with Jessica Mraz. Shout out to her. She did fantastic in that.
That was all her. That was her idea. You know, Jessica deserves all the credit if you enjoyed it, for sure. She had an idea. She wanted to get something down as kind of a proof of concept.
Sure.
So we put together the short that she wrote and that she created, which was based on television news. So it wasn't much of a stretch for me. But,
and you guys shot at the studio at KFox, right? So it was even easier. And correct me if I'm wrong, you directed that, right? I
did. Yeah. And again, that's the first time that I'd done that in I want to say years.
Okay.
So it kind of got me back into shooting again. I had taken a long break from filmmaking.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm glad you did, because it came out really great. And I remember, I mean, Jessica Mraz, she's great, and we got to meet her and talk to her, and she handed us the trophy when we won. So she's always been really good to us, and but we hope to have her on the podcast soon as well. But when I remember when I talked to you and I was like, "Oh, we saw your film and we loved it," and then you were like, "Hey, which film was yours?" So we told you, "Oh, it's the one with the two comedians and they fall in love, and it's a chick flick." And your reaction, I will never forget, Robert. Your reaction was just through the roof. You were like, "What, dude? That was amazing. That was
like, get out of here."
I'm serious. Like,
that's what you're supposed to say, I guess.
Maybe, right?
No. It was heartfelt. Yeah.
it was, yeah. I just felt like you actually really cared for it, and that just like that will always be imprinted in my brain, man. So I remember that, and that was my first interaction with you. So thank you for that. That was a big deal for us, for sure.
Well, good. I meant it. I mean, I was so blown away by. I mean, it wasn't any. It didn't surprise me that you won, but overall, just everyone's abilities. I was very impressed generally, but certainly when I was talking to you guys, it was so great to meet you guys because I had been so struck by the film when I saw it, when we all screened it there.
Yeah.
Was yours later, or why wasn't it picked? Because
it wasn't meant for competition. It was
okay. Yeah.
I think Jessica just wanted to do it while she was in town, and then they allowed her to screen it. Yeah.
Yeah, and Jessica lives in LA, and she's really doing the actress thing. She's done shows like Supergirl and has done a ton of stuff. She's really active in the LA acting scene, but she's an El Pasoan at heart, and I love that about her. She comes back and she becomes she's back home, and I think that was her purpose with that film, right? Is just to do something for El Paso.
Absolutely, she's look, amazingly talented. Amazing person, beautiful inside and out, and a huge champion for El Paso. Yeah. And it's strange. We both lived in LA, for years, and I didn't meet her until I moved to El Paso. It's
wow.
I met her through
and I really do want to get into that part. So kind of we'll use that as a transition, Robert. And we really are curious to know our listeners as well, to find out about what we call your hero's journey. Can you tell us about your journey in filmmaking, journalism, how everything kicked off, and we can, learn from you.
Where did the man, the myth, the legend start?
Yeah, where did the fire begin?
Sure, it's going to be a pretty short journey, but I'll fill you guys in. Well, and listen, and one of the reasons that I was so excited to meet you guys when I did, and when I found out that you were the creators of that film that I enjoyed so much, you have to understand that, for me to see what young filmmakers are doing in El Paso now, it's very inspiring, because I'm kind of that bridge generation, right? I'm an old guy, so I come from the era when if you wanted to do filmmaking and you wanted to take filmmaking seriously, when I was your age, when I was in my early 20s, you only had one choice, which was to shoot on film, or your other option was to shoot on video.
Yeah.
And I think DV was coming out at the time, and
sure.
Even DV, it was still going to look like a soap opera. You know what I mean? You understand what I mean? Like in terms of a film. So making a film when I was your age, and I made 2 feature films in my 20s, it was so difficult and so cost prohibitive.
Sure.
And almost unrealistic, really, unless you had a lot of money and a lot of a crew, that it was actually kind of a disheartening project or process.
Yeah.
To the point that it put me off of doing it. Does that make sense? So when I see what can be done now, and what I see what you guys are doing, it's inspiring, because it's like, okay, now I do feel like we've arrived at a time now when a lot of the handcuffs have come off and a lot of the barriers are gone to making a high quality product, where the only limitation is your ability and your talent and your drive, as opposed to the whole, listen, man, we had to shoot. I mean, I could tell you the horror stories if you.
Please, yeah.
At least one. The worst one.
Well, I mean, the worst thing is, remember when you're shooting on film, as we did, and again, we're first-time filmmakers. We didn't go to film school. We just read some books. We read Rodriguez's book, which that's why that night was so important, because his book was really inspiring to me. When
definitely
on the field,
definitely.
We grabbed an Aeroflex BL 16 millimeter and a Nagra reel-to-reel and a crystal sync motor to sync up with the camera. I mean, putting film in your camera and shooting, you don't know what you have. You won't know for weeks or months.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And
so you got to process.
You don't know if you overexposed. You don't know if you underexposed. You don't know if the shot's in focus. You don't know if and really you don't have the ability to do several takes by any stretch, because a can of film.
That's the money.
Yeah. 10 minutes. And it's $400, and then another $400 to process and convert to video in order to edit. Yeah. So I mean, again, listen. A lot of people, figured it out.
We're spoiled. That's what you're saying. We're spoiled.
Well, listen, I wouldn't say spoiled, but I would say like,
it's because
I would agree with you.
know.
I would agree with you. And when it comes to the DV process, that didn't make things that much easier. I remember Rodriguez in his book, he even talked about having to edit on 2 VCRs and having to edit in a public access type studio, and DV wasn't the easiest thing to. It's not like Premiere today, it's not like digital. It's definitely not. So I can understand where you're coming from. Were both of your feature films, were they shot on celluloid, or did you? Yeah, both of them.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah. So the first one we did was really ambitious and really like ridiculously ambitious for first-time filmmakers. It was called Heat is the Devil, and it was about a group of kids from El Paso that go into Juarez on one night. The whole film takes over the course of one night. And it was a large cast. It was a cast of like 7. We shot in Juarez. We shot in bars in Juarez. We shot at night with
yes,
ridiculous. Because back then film, you needed so much light.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't want to go on and on with how difficult it was, because we got through it and did it.
Sure.
But it was overly ambitious, way too difficult. But yeah, the whole thing we shot on 16. And then my second film, which was a comedy, and then I thought I had to kind of learn from my mistakes.
Right.
I said, well, I'll shoot in all daylight, which made things a lot easier, but still very difficult.
So were you doing the whole thing? Were you like acting, directing, editing?
Yeah.
See, that's why you gassed out sometimes.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I remember our first feature film, though we had a blast and that was a great experience, and though it was exactly like you, that we treated that as our film school. Eric, he was the lead in that, and I'm grateful because we had a team. I'm grateful because we had a team, and it was obviously we shot in digital. And we as filmmakers now, it's funny how things work. We see celluloid as like the holy grail. Like when the minute we get to shoot on the Academy 35mm, we can say we've made it, Yeah. But digital right now, you're absolutely right. It makes things so much easier, and it facilitates it. I mean, we made our feature film for $1,200 on a 21-day schedule. It was nothing, and
I still haven't gotten my check, but it's cool. It's all right.
We're asking people for favors, and we're asking to shoot in locations, and just like any independent filmmaker, right? But that's nothing compared to making a film on celluloid, because you're talking about thousands of dollars just on film stock. Yeah. So yeah, trust me when I say we're grateful, Robert.
Yeah. What is your main passion? Is it the writing, directing, or because you look like an actor, man? You look like you could come on like
what does that mean? Do you think? Does that mean that I look like I have no soul? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, you got that endless stare. I'm just like
hey, actors know other actors.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I think I like acting. It's fun. I don't consider myself an actor, because I've worked with real actors and I've seen, what they do when they turn that on.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, Robert? Because I remember you posting stuff and telling us about when you worked with like Luke Wilson and Heather Graham on a film, and you spent years in LA too. So can you tell us a little bit about that acting background too? Yeah.
So it's funny because those films that I was in a couple of big movies. Well, one big movie and then one Miramax movie that was kind of a cool indie. That's cool. An interesting El Paso footnote. So I was in The Day After Tomorrow with that was the big disaster movie.
With Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. That was cool to see what a massive production looks like.
Right.
I didn't necessarily get to interact with actors very much because I was I was cast as a newscaster, so no big stretch. But it was cool to see. I mean, it was an army of filmmakers that were in town for that production, and that particular scene is shot over kind of by UTEP and overlooking the Rio Grande, right? So look, and it was really interesting because the shot originally, the way they shot it was a massive trucking shot off of a crane. So it went from me, and then it kind of, the crane came off me and it went down the hill, and it coordinated with the extras that ran into frame, and then the camera craned over the river.
Okay.
But what's interesting is that in the movie, I guess they figured it didn't work, or they did it 3 times. It took all day to do that shot 3 times. Wow. And but in the movie, they just kind of do straight edits, and they just kind of cut. So I don't know whatever happened with that particular move. I guess maybe they thought it took too long or something.
Right.
But anyway, that was cool. And then it was also in a movie called Committed, which was with Heather Graham. That was like her first kind of like, it was an interesting project, man. I've talked to people about it. It was a Miramax movie that kind of cherry picked all these hot stars at the time. You know,
Sure.
It had Luke Wilson, had Heather Graham, it had Mark Ruffalo, it had Casey Affleck, and it had all these people that they got together. Jon Stewart,
Wow.
I love
at the time was still
all the Miramax players, really. I mean, Casey was coming off of Good Will Hunting. Heather Graham was coming off of Boogie Nights. I mean, yeah. Strange. So they brought them all together, and then they kind of partnered them with this director that had gotten some heat at Sundance. Her name was Lisa. Her last name escapes me right now. But anyway, they put them all together. And then it's funny, I was talking to a friend of mine who was crew on that, who was a local hire, and he said that Harvey Weinstein was in El Paso at the hotel. They were all staying at what was then the Camino Real. I never saw Harvey Weinstein, but apparently he was here kind of shepherding the whole project. I mean, Miramax was his, right, at the end of the day. Sure.
Yeah. So that was really a cool shoot. I got to I had scenes with her and with Heather Graham and with Luke Wilson. They got cut down in the final cut to very short scenes. I don't even think I deliver a line on camera. I think I'm off camera when I deliver my line with Heather. Oh, okay. But I did a whole long scene with her. That was great. It'd be great to see that footage someday. But
and how do you what do you mean when they get in there to their rhythm? Like, give us an example. Like Heather Graham, how you had to sing with her.
Well, I'll give you the example of Luke Wilson, who I thought was, and Heather as well. But I can give with Luke. It was more striking to me because we were just talking about El Paso and talking about, I don't know, whatever nonsense there is. And then his scene required him to really switch into, it was a lot of dialogue. And that's always like, when you see that on a page, right? Like as an actor, you see it's like the shape of the letter I, right? Just like all this dialogue.
Yeah.
And I was asking him, I was like, man, how do you prepare for that or something? And and he just was, really honest with me. And he said, like, listen, he wasn't necessarily a trained actor, but he said that he can turn the switch on in his mind and he can turn that switch on and become that person. And then to see him do it, to see him go from just being this kind of lanky Austin guy to being, or Houston guy, I guess he was, to just suddenly being that character was very impressive. And that gives me, again, more respect for what real actors can do. Back to your original question.
I mean, fantastic, because, I mean, and you're right. I mean, him being a Texas boy, you would connect with him, I'm assuming, as a Texas guy and just, talk about anything. And he seems like a very laid-back guy, him and his brother. And I love
they had such an interesting, they're self-made filmmakers themselves, like they're just such an interesting story in and of themselves
they're from Dallas, if I'm not mistaken, and they kind of grew up in the Dallas, Houston area, and then I think they became friends with Wes Anderson, who's also a Texas boy, and he became an indie filmmaker, and they became friends with him. Until this day, they make movies together. So talk about like almost rags to riches story, but these guys are known entirely, and both have done really well for themselves. Both Luke and Owen. Obviously, Owen has a little more mainstream success, but Luke has done crazy things like the Idiocracy films, and we're talking about the 70s show, and he's done very well for himself. He's done a ton of stuff. So and then
I suggest that everyone check out their first movie, Bottle Rocket. I think it's
Bottle Rocket.
Yes, 95.
It's a beautiful little movie and totally made on a shoestring. And again, an example of people who were who figured it out. And I think Wes was obviously a virtuoso, right? I mean,
it's funny because that film it was very highly revered by the great Martin Scorsese. Like Martin Scorsese saw Bottle Rocket and he's like, this kid Wes is gonna make it. This kid's gonna do something in film, and it's just based on Bottle Rocket, which I think is really awesome. Yeah. Awesome. I mean, that's an awesome experience, Robert, on that film that you're talking about. Now, you say you took a break for a little while, but when it comes to the filmmaking aspect of it, naturally, we're all filmmakers. We all took we got our degrees in filmmaking and or at least in digital media production, right? And naturally, the voice inside of us is like, hey, think about the money, think about going into something more stable like news or journalism or writing for magazines, writing for newspapers, etc. But the filmmaking, inside of us just doesn't let us go to tell stories. And I can really see that in you. And I love that that you picked up the camera again. We got to see your premiere episode of your new show, in which I want to talk about in a second. But did all the exposure to these big actors, to these big movie sets, do anything for your filmmaking bones? You know, did it do anything to inspire you on that front?
That's good.
Because I also got to ask, is the cliche of LA actors that they're all narcissists, douchebags, did that kind of like turn you off, or?
No.
Is that true at all?
I had several friends who were professional working actors in LA.
Okay.
I think, and then they were not douchebags. I should finish that.
Well, yeah, that's not a good term, but you know.
No, it's good to.
I'll tell you what's interesting, though. I'll tell you what's interesting. And I could see it. I saw it. You know, I lived in LA for 10 years, so I saw it before. I saw these arcs, even again, just working actors, right? These are people who, work in
get a check at least.
Yeah, they get into a series where they get book commercials regularly. So I had a friend who booked commercials. He's a funny guy. He's a part of an improv troupe, but he's a funny guy who had like a really hot run for like 2 years, was getting cast in a lot of national commercials and doing great. I mean, he was doing fantastic. I had another friend who was really talented, really excellent, and was, he was in a couple of, like a couple of network shows in small roles. I won't say his name because it's kind of, he's a cautionary tale, perhaps, in the sense that, all the talent, had a great look, was up for The Walking Dead, was up for a part in The Walking Dead when it was first being cast. Wow. Made it down to like the final 2 for this one particular role, and then ultimately it goes to someone else. And then he just kind of kicks around in LA again with small parts. He was on a series as a kind of a series regular, had a recurring role, and then finally he reached the point where he was like, I'm done, and he moved back to home. But it's so strange, right? Because I think that's the actor's life, in the sense that you can have all the talent, you can have all the ability, but man, so much of it comes down to luck and perseverance and just kind of sticking around until the right thing comes around, if you want to stick around that long. He did it for 20 years, and it just didn't work, and he finally just left the game.
So doesn't that feel like the filmmaking process? I mean, I know it happens, especially with actors, but I mean, you see like every person in every department and all that, and it's trying to find that right mix of talent, luck, finding the right people, right locations, right time, and everything, and then just hoping that it all comes together. It's crazy, even though it's as difficult as it is, and I think you felt it, and we all feel it. It's such a passion, though. It's something that you feel at your personal best when you're actually doing it, be it acting or anything else.
To add to your point, Delao, I that's why we as Tower try to encourage filmmakers to work with other filmmakers and to work with any actor that's available to act, and any producer and anybody that really loves this craft and really wants to jump into it, because when we meet, it's encouraging to meet people like you, Robert, because you're the guy that has seen it all, and he's lived in LA for 10 years and has done feature films and has acted in major motion pictures. And then you meet filmmakers and you want to know about them, and you want to impart any knowledge that you've learned. And it's encouraging to meet people like that, because naturally when we started our filmmaking journey, we'd meet people who, like you, have done the LA thing, have met people, have made connections, and kind of look down on the new filmmakers, and I love that El Paso, like you said, has this brand new awesome filmmaking community that we started as a company 4 years ago. That was when we made our first our first short film, and since then we've grown, and we've done over 20 short films and done a ton of stuff that we've learned of. But anytime we meet filmmakers that want to jump into it and they're new to the process, you see them almost like, can I ask you guys questions about filmmaking? And we're like, dude, come on set. Like, let's have you, let's learn the way filmmaking needs to be learned, because just like everybody knows, it's a very hands-on thing, and you learn by doing and not necessarily by reading a book, so to speak, right? So we love to encourage filmmakers to do that and work with all sorts of people, because the stronger we get as a community here in El Paso, as a filmmaking community, the better it's going to be for everybody. And attracting projects to come to El Paso and and we're already seeing it in Las Cruces, and we're already seeing it in the New Mexico areas. And I think we all strongly feel that El Paso is very much a backlot. It's this big backlot where we can shoot in, and we have stages, and we have the scenery, we have mountains, and we have greens, and we have desert, and it's just the perfect place to shoot, really.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So it's awesome to meet filmmakers like you, Robert, and to go into that. How have you seen the filmmaking community? You've been a part of it since your journey, since when you started your journey. But now, like you said, it's there's more of a community. How has that process been for you to see?
I mean, I guess it's been encouraging. It's been encouraging, and it's uplifting. I think I think that's the way to best describe it. For me, it's interesting to come from, again, having made a feature 20 years ago, and have a young teenager be a PA on the set who is now a film professor at UTEP, Ramon Villa, right? So watching his progression, watching that progression is very encouraging and uplifting, and I'm so proud of him, and I just think it's great, right? I mean, I think it's great that we all kind of have been on this ride for a long time, but I think it's also equally as encouraging to see what you guys are doing, to see how inclusive you guys are doing, and how much you're working to continue to foster the film scene, which is a big part of it, right? Like what you're doing with the podcast, what you guys do in making sure that you're involved in festivals and encouraging others. That's huge.
Yeah, I mean, we really admire the filmmakers like the Robert Rodriguez's, like the Richard Linklaters, who are able to stay in Texas and bring the work to them, or go out and make a film in LA and make a film in New York or Vancouver or Atlanta, wherever the hotspots are right now, and then come back home and be based out of here. And that's something we want to do for El Paso. And that's something, if nothing else, our goal is to make feature films in El Paso that are getting recognized and that are getting recognized outside of Texas and outside of El Paso. And that's always the goal. And a lot of filmmakers, thankfully, in El Paso are doing it. They're getting their films in not just us, but they're getting their films in festivals in LA and festivals in Canada and Mexico, and getting recognized for their work. And I love that the first tagline we read is El Paso filmmaker blank is doing this. Yeah, and that's just the most encouraging thing. It's
are we getting back into it though? Like, how long is it going to take where we can,
I mean, that's the only thing that every filmmaker is suffering through right now, is we can't go out and shoot the way we used to, right? Because of this pandemic. And it's the number one thing we're looking forward to. Have you seen any progression or regression, Robert? I mean, you're as a newscaster and as a journalist, you obviously cover this stuff, on a daily basis. Yeah. But have you seen any progression or regression? I mean, even with your own work, you've had to go out and shoot, I'm sure, with a limited crew. Just to keep things safe, but it's something that every filmmaker is experiencing. Can you tell us your experience on the pandemic and how you're doing with things?
Yeah, so we actually right before things got really crazy, we really kind of sent everybody home, right, as a TV station.
Sure.
So that's as almost everyone went home. It's kind of crazy to see a TV station that's kind of empty, really. My co-anchor Erica is still at the studio, but I've been anchoring from home now, with this setup for 6 months. So
it's a sweet setup, though. Sweet setup.
Kind of bananas. I've been shooting again, with reasonable precautions. And so you mentioned the launch of my show. This is my opportunity to plug it. It's called Built.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So that airs every Sunday night.
We saw the pilot, Robert. We saw the pilot, and I remember I love that it's the process. I mean, we as filmmakers know the process, right? So I remember we talked to you about the show back at the film festival, and you said, "Hey, I'm getting this new series kicked off," and we were talking about it, and now to see it come to fruition and see the pilot, man, is just awesome. And shout out to our buddy Jason, who worked on that as well.
Thank Jason, absolutely.
But the show's fantastic, built in the borderland, and it's really your heart. It shows that your heart is in the borderland, Robert, and you're trying to show, hey, look, we got a lot going on in El Paso. Can you tell us a little bit about your thought process for the show?
Sure, absolutely. And yeah, you're right. I remember we talked about this. It's been something that I've been trying to kick around for a long time. Obviously, doing a half-hour show and then also working, as a full-time anchor is difficult, and especially because
the hours.
I tend to shoot my own stuff. So I shoot and I edit and and I'm also the talent in it, right? So so that's difficult. But the first episode is kind of a taste of what like a travel log would be, right? We were up in Hatch, and that was fun. But it won't always look like that. It'll have a different look from time to time. Often it's going to look. Yeah. It'll look a lot like what you guys are doing sometimes. In some cases, it'll be a podcast about, a pertinent topic, something that is happening in the community. So I intend to keep it kind of
fresh and
yeah, the format will be fluid. The format will be fluid. But it airs Sunday nights at 10:30 on KFOX 14. You can also find it on our website, kfoxtv.com. So there's the plugs. But in terms of shooting, we've just been, more careful. You've got, we're keeping our distance. We're keeping that 6 feet rule, and then also masks, of course.
Sure.
When we're not outside, or when I was outside, I interviewed a guy outside, and we're 6 feet apart, and I felt like that was okay to take our masks off.
Sure. In
terms of production, when I've shot since, we did something where we had it was 3 of us involved. We had been in we'd been in quarantine. We'd been safe. We'd been tested, and then we shot a little tiny short.
Okay.
So but it's not easy, right? Because you've got to make sure that everyone is kind of safe. Mm-hmm. And so we were really safe and took all the precautions, and everything was fine. Everybody was fine, but it wasn't easy to shoot that short.
Yeah. I mean, it's we get used to the shorthands we have with our crews, right? And that's kind of my big worry on getting back to set, because we've been the filmmakers that have just made a short film with just 2 of us, Austin holding the camera, and when we were shooting in Austin, Texas, Eric acting, and then me directing, and we've obviously come from that school of thought that when you're an indie filmmaker, you use what you have and get out there and do it. But then over the years, we've gratefully have developed a crew where everybody's doing their job, and when everybody's doing their job, the film speaks for itself. The film comes out of that. Our 2-day challenge film is a big credit to that, just because our crew is so awesome. The crew is.
Dude, I'm still amazed that we put up episodes every week, man. I don't even know who does that.
I mean, and that's what I'm referring to. Like, when it comes to this pandemic, that's the crazy part. Is like, oh man, if we're going out to shoot, the safe thing to do is just to have a limited crew at a distance and make sure that crew has been tested and has been doing. So then you start feeling like, oh man, but I'm losing my shorthand to my sound designer. I'm losing my shorthand to my.
Did you feel like that?
Is that something that you want? I mean, you're used to having a station at your axis, right? And you kind of, or not like so much. Do you usually like to do things on your own, anyways? Is that kind of?
Yeah. So for me,
a lone wolf.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to shoot my own things. So then, when I have been shooting, it hasn't been that big of an adjustment.
Okay.
Obviously, Jason was, a help for me on this last episode. He just
Jason's like 5 people in one, dude. So
he's fantastic, and he's like always ready to jump into something new. So that was cool. But yeah, no, it's not a big shift from me. But I understand what you're saying from your end in terms of if you have a vision for making a film or a short, that you envision your crew around you working in the roles that they're supposed to work, that is a difficult adjustment. For what I did when I shot the most recent short, again, I'm shooting, it's just two actors and that's it, so it was just, but of course, not everything is going to be able to work that way.
Can we expect to see that short anytime soon, Robert? Is that something you're planning on releasing, or?
Yeah, it'll be in the El Paso Film Festival. So that's
perfect.
Nice.
Yeah. Coming
awesome. So we'll make sure to check that out, and shout out to the El Paso Film Festival. They're going virtual.
Yeah, what is happening with that?
They're going virtual. They're definitely going virtual, and they're doing awesome things to make the festival as interactive as possible for everybody involved. So shout out to them. Shout out to Carlos Corral, who's obviously been amazing in bringing that festival to town and stuff. Everybody involved.
I mean, he has done such a great job. Last year was such a fantastic event.
It was.
I cannot say enough about it. And I mean, it's a shame that it's having to go virtual, but I applaud his ability to pivot, just like everyone else has had to do.
We have to applaud not only Carlos Corral and the El Paso Film Festival, but also everybody like Doug Pullen involved in the Plaza Classic Film Festival. Shout out to Drew Mayer Oaks for bringing the 2-day challenge. I mean, all of these parties that are really, really taking stride and making El Paso Film Festivals a thing and a staple. Because we've heard of the Las Cruces International Film Festival, and though there are kind of our sister town, and we connect with them and we connect to those filmmakers. Now El Paso has its own thing, and that we're very proud of that. I'm very proud to be involved in that.
I'm glad you did that. I'm glad you shouted them out, Carlos. You're right.
Yes.
That's important.
Yeah, it's super important, and the right people are taking charge of that, and the right people that are being involved are doing it. So we support them fully as filmmakers here in town, and we can only hope that it keeps growing and growing and growing every year. So hopefully once this pandemic is done, the virtual stuff is out the window, and we're back at interacting with filmmakers and talking to everybody at the festivals.
When is the festival? When is that going to be?
October 6th, I think. I think
oh, wow.
Like that, right?
2 weeks from now.
I believe you're right, Robert. the week of October 6th and on. It's a 4-day festival, if I'm not mistaken.
Right, and they'll stream, and they're having like a dedicated channel. But it's cool.
Hey guys, we have 2 weeks, man. We got at least a week,
So yeah, everybody, if you're listening in, make sure to tune into the El Paso Film Festival and check out all the shorts that have been submitted. It's not just El Paso shorts. I want to make that very clear. It's
right.
The bulk of them are, but a lot of them are international. A lot of them are coming from different cities from the country. So check them out. Definitely. We have a lot of friends that are involved in this year's festival. So shout out to everybody, including Robert. So we're looking forward to that short film.
Yeah, it's called Neighbor of the Year. So watch
Neighbor of the Year.
And let's see El Paso. Let's give him a shout out here for the website.
Yeah, I have horrible neighbors, man.
Let's see here. El Paso Film Festival. Let's make sure that we're giving the right info out there. Yeah, October 16th through the 25th. So I was off by a few days.
Oh, okay.
But it's elpasofilmfestival.org. And that's going to be cool. The film program looks awesome. So
awesome. So now that you're getting back into it, like you say, you've picked up the camera again, Robert. Apart from the show, which we're looking forward to many more episodes, it's going to be a great program.
Yes.
Is there any films or any TV series, anything that you've creatively has just been coming out of you? Do you plan on making more films? Is that something you fall in love with?
What are you dabbling in right now?
Boy, I'll tell you what. I think I'm trying to get my arms around this weekly show. So that's going to be kind of my focus for right now.
Yeah,
of course.
So, and obviously, like you said, I mean, man, once we get past this, and once we get past the COVID era, yeah, it's time. I think everyone's creative juices are going to be flowing.
Right?
Everyone's going to be out there, right? I mean, I'm sure you can't wait.
Look, just to give people a perspective, the people in this room, I mean, give people a perspective on Tower and what we've been doing, Robert. It's insane how much pre-production and how many projects we've developed during this quarantine. I mean, we're talking about north of 6 short films that have been in development, 3 feature films, 2 web series that have been in development. And we're just waiting to shoot. Like I
already told Carlos, I don't care, man. I'll get the flyers, man. I'll fight that thing, man.
Yeah, and a ton of them. We've just been having meetings and production meetings and budget meetings, and hopefully trying to get some type of budget for the projects we're trying to work on. But you're right, we're on pins and needles, wanting to get back out there and shoot. We're waiting for it, and our creative juices. They're in this little box for now, but we're ready to get out there. And
I think with the next film festivals to come and all that, we're not going to feel a stunt. We're going to see so many creative projects just kind of come out of it, because that's where everybody's at right now. We're all ready to just go back out there, and I think the challenge of having to be in a confined situation or shooting with limited crew and getting those kind of creative juices flowing, I think it's making everybody better in a way.
Yeah.
Because it's showing us, well, there's a lot that you can do with limitations, and then once those limitations lifted, go out there. I was gonna say with Born in the Borderland, it's amazing how it looks and how it came out. I mean, narration, everything, the interviews you got. It captured so much warmth of that community that I think you were going for in
thank you
filming it, and it's crazy to think that was done right now during quarantine, when a lot of people are thinking you can't get that kind of quality because of the limitations that are there right now. And seeing what you were able to accomplish with a limited crew, but really just a good story and a good message at heart, I think it really shows for it. So
with Built in the Borderland, Robert, I agree with you though. I think you're capturing the essence of El Paso that only an El Pasoan can capture, and I love that. And I know it's Hatch, New Mexico, but we're all around the surrounding areas. But I'm very much looking forward to that, because typically on TV, the essence that people capture of El Paso is either negative, on the negative connotation with the stuff that's been going on in the past with the for instance the tragic shooting or or even just the drug situation across the border and stuff like that. That's kind of the essence and perception that a lot of people get of our beautiful city. But the essence that you're capturing is fresh and it's authentic and it's real. Yeah. And I very much look forward to seeing more of that, because it's what people should be seeing. We've had national shows, like even like what's his name, Guy Fieri's show come to do some segments here in town, and it's awesome, but they're little maybe 10-15 minute segments that doesn't capture the whole essence of the city. So I'm excited that your program is a half-hour program that really is capturing, like Delao said, the authentic interviews, the beautiful scenery. It's awesome, man. It's really awesome. So
I love shooting, man. I love shooting, and I always have since I was a kid. And now with now that I can shoot on a mirrorless with good glass, it's fantastic. I mean, listen, my dad, I was a kid. I was probably 12 or 11 or something like that when my dad was a school principal at Gadsden Junior High, and on a summer break over the summer, my dad brought home a camcorder, right? Like this was the old camcorders where you get the camera, then had an umbilical cord. The umbilical cord went down to a deck, right? Wow. Right. VHS deck. So he brought that home one summer, and I messed with it every day. And I just did things. I shot like little movies, and I just it changed my life. It really did. And
what is it about the creative, or just your outlook? Make people want to see what you're looking, or what's the message?
Was it just the magic to the camera that one day?
It's because you guys like to shoot. I want to see where you guys get that itch. I like to be in front of the camera.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't have an answer necessarily. I think there's a lot of things that are happening. I think the camera, the way that you can capture, I mean, it's essentially a time machine, right? And it freezes things forever. Right. And it'll always live in that moment that you captured. I think that's why I love certain movies that evoke that. I mean,
it's timeless. It's a timeless medium.
And when people do it effectively, I mean, obviously, like the giants, like Scorsese or something. When you watch Mean Streets, I mean, when you watch Mean Streets, or when you watch, Taxi Driver, man, that is a moment in time that is frozen. That even a movie as well done as Joker, which was clearly a ripoff of
Thank you, Robert. Thank you for saying that.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, it was even something as well done, at high level as that. It's not what you see on the screen. A Taxi Driver is New York in the 70s, and there is nothing that can get past what you're looking at, because that is reality. So
and Robert, just to give you some reference, the reason we're joking around about this is because we have another podcast called the Watchtower Podcast, and it's also on our network, and it's about film reviewing, and my favorite director of all time is Martin Scorsese. He's my hero. He's my cinematic hero, and I'm always talking about him, and I'm always bragging about his films. And Castro over here likes to all right, man, come on.
It's just, once or twice it's like, haha. But like after the fifth time, it's like, okay.
So when somebody like you agrees with me on the fact that he's the master of thing, it's
adding fuel to the fire.
It's enabling me to talk more about him. So thank you, Robert.
Yeah, well, you're welcome.
Actually, the next question: who's your favorite director?
Very quickly though, I'm not going to defend The Irishman.
Yes.
There was way too much driving in that. Why are they driving so much in that movie?
I've never heard that. Wow, that's a good point. I've never heard that. I mean, hey,
the CGI, man, they got to work with.
Watch. Why don't we do an ad-lib scene we'll do The Irishman, okay? John Eric, like you do you be De Niro. Let's see here. Let's just do a scene. I'll be Pacino. We'll just ad-lib. We'll just do an improv scene here of that movie, okay?
There you go.
It's not good.
What's not good?
Not a good thing.
I mean, there's a lot of no good things here.
No, it's oh wait, I'm doing De Niro. I'm sorry.
They're kind of hard to. But anyway, I'll do you guys a favor. I'll be Marty. Cut. All right, let's wrap it up. We'll move on to
That's the problem, is that he didn't yell cut. That there's something
Hey, I'll see that. I get where everybody's coming from on The Irishman, man, but I think it's a masterpiece. Just being able to bring Pacino's performance in that is phenomenal. I really
when
do
he's
think
stomping on the guy with his hand, it just doesn't look like somebody stomping us.
Hey, their age is their age, right? But
listen,
ultimately,
they're masterful actors and they're masterful performances. I mean, it's funny because you can just tell that that's when a filmmaker sometimes benefits from having a production company to reel you in. And like you got to edit some of this out, brother.
I mean, at this point, he could, and that's what I love about like the Netflix aspect of it. Is I don't defend the film. I see where its shortcomings are, but I also say like he can do whatever he wants, man. And Netflix gave him the money to just do whatever he wants. Whereas a studio, if he was going to work with Paramount, for instance, which he was for The Irishman, and then they dropped because of the ballooning budget. It's interesting to be like, well, Netflix will say, I don't care, do your 3.5 hour cut. It's your film. Where a studio will come and say, let's cut out an hour, let's cut out a half an hour or whatever it is.
Right.
So I mean, he's doing what he wants, man. He's late in his age. He's doing the films he wants to do. He deserves it.
See what you did, Robert. He's hurt.
He's rode his bones. Man. He's rode his bones. No, Robert's not the first person to tell me about The Irishman. Trust me. But hey, we have terrific films this year, like Parasite, which was a phenomenal film. And I know you got to see recently Tenet, right, Robert? And you got that experience, which it seems like everybody's got mixed feelings about it. So
I heard it's a flop. That's what I've been hearing. That's what
I think listen, I mean, talk about amazing directors, right? There's no argument.
Chris Nolan, yeah.
I mean, there's no argument with his ability, of course. And he's so consumed with also, like, I love like his I love when people have obsessions, right? And those obsessions come across in their art. And he's clearly like has an obsession when it comes to timelines and the way that memories work and all that. Pardon me here.
Sure.
But, so I have my phone silenced, but my watch rings. Is that how that works?
Yep.
Okay. All right. I apologize. Anyway,
that's 2020.
Celebrity life, man. We get it.
But yeah, so back to Tenet very quickly. I won't dwell on it, but it's for one thing, I do think that David Washington is miscast. I just think like
really,
he's miscast first and foremost, and then secondly, there is just there is just so much that is happening.
That's
that
what I'm thinking,
not just logic bombs, but there's just so much happening that at some point you want to enjoy the movie and enjoy the story.
Yeah, I've got a notebook with a pen. What's going on?
Yeah.
An investigation. To go back to John's question, Robert, who's your favorite filmmaker?
Yeah,
well, Scorsese for sure. I mean, again, the reason that I think that Scorsese is so important is because obviously, I mean, an American treasure, right? But he returns to that thing that we were talking about, which is that he captured authenticity and he captured real moments of slices of life that didn't exist before. That, obviously the mobster movie has become something of a cliche at this point, but we're talking in the 70s now.
Yeah.
When it started. And listen, more than individual filmmakers, what films work for me and when films inspire me is when they show me a way of life that I wasn't aware of. And it can be something, like even it can be Black Swan or it can be Saturday Night Fever.
Wow.
It can just be like these people and these real worlds. They exist in a real world.
Sure.
And I'm like, I didn't know about this. I didn't know what it would be like to be growing up as a teenager in Queens or
right.
I think they're in Long Island or something. I'm not exactly sure where they were in Saturday Night Fever, but anyway, those moments where you can take me to another world and you can show me that world authentically, is huge. But I'm also kind of a sci-fi geek. Ridley Scott has been a god of mine forever.
Yes, Aliens.
Yeah. I mean,
awesome. Do you have a particular? I know you know the question's coming. Do you have a particular favorite film?
So I think if I can watch a film over and over, like no matter when it's on, Blade Runner is one of them.
Wow.
Blade Runner, I think, is one of those like just magical films that just captured everybody at the top of their game, and everything is just perfect in that movie, as far as I'm concerned.
I love that you talk about the world building and you talk about being immersed in another world, that you're, even if it's live action or if it's animation or what have you. That's what films do for me too, Robert. That's if I can be transported. We just did an episode on the other podcast for Hugo. Oh, yeah. And that's what Hugo does for me, is just transports me into Paris, 1940s or whatever, 1950s, whatever it was. And it just transports me into that world. And that's another great Martin Scorsese film, obviously. But if a film can do that for me, I'm sold. And I'm on the same boat as you. Blade Runner is definitely world building at its best, for sure.
Yeah. And I guess if you were to finish your question, my favorite movie, like the movie that just, again, like for no practical reason, but my favorite movie is Miller's Crossing. Which is maybe
Miller's Crossing. Wow.
One of the lesser known Coen Brothers movies.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's just, God, man, that movie, again, everyone's at the top of their game, and there is a world there that is so real, and these characters are so flawed. And that filmmaker trick of getting you to care about such flawed people is such a beautiful magic trick.
Yeah, that's magic.
I mean, the Coen brothers, we just did an episode on The Big Lebowski, but I talk about their films like The Ballad of Buster Scruggs on that episode, and how that impacted me a lot. I was hit or miss with them. I'll be honest, Robert, they were hit or miss for me for a long time. And then I saw films like Inside Llewyn Davis, and which depresses the hell out of you, but it's a fantastic character piece. Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, obviously, and The Ballad of Buster Scruggs was just the cherry on top for me with the Coen brothers. It's an interesting choice that you chose. Yeah. That is an interesting film, and I can see how the character development and the flawed characters can be intriguing. So that's a really good choice. I like that. I like that.
And it's really weird too. I'll tell you, it's just like the part of getting older is when I watched that movie in my 20s. You know, you identify with Gabriel Byrne. And now that I watch it, now that I'm 50, I'm identifying with Albert Finney in that movie. So that art, it's kind of strange, you know, it's an interesting process. But did they shoot Buster Scruggs on digital? Was that a digital?
Yeah, I believe they did. Yeah, they did.
What are you guys shooting on?
We're shooting digital. We're shooting right now. We've been very big fans of the new Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera, the 4K.
Okay. So you just kind of rig it out?
Yeah, definitely. We've been shooting on Rokinon lenses, which have been the Cine lenses are absolutely fantastic.
Agreed.
Give us beautiful quality. But we also just thankfully were able to finally purchase our 6K. So we've just done test shots and camera tests on it, but we haven't been able to shoot on it. So we're waiting. But yeah, the Blackmagic has really given us the ability to. For instance, the new camera has time code, and we've been able to edit a lot more efficiently with those cameras. Whereas before we were shooting on a Nikon D5200, I think. And though it was a great first little camera to get started on, we went from that to shooting on the Sony A7S to shooting on the Blackmagic. So it's been a pretty good progression in terms of digital. I think for our next feature, we're probably going to start exploring some reds.
Okay. I was going to ask you. You saw a marked improvement from the A7S to the Pocket.
Definitely, especially in low light. In low light, the A7S does great in low light, but the Pocket Cinema 4K,
the dynamic range on that is just
dynamic range. It's pretty great. It's as a body, it's inexpensive. Even the 6K is relatively inexpensive compared to like a Red Scarlet, which will run you anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000. The Blackmagic, you're looking at $1,500 for the body. You know, so
it's amazing.
So it's inexpensive, and they're getting more and more inexpensive because Blackmagic has innovated that side of things. From what I understand, Red is releasing a pocket camera as well that I guess is designed to compete with the Blackmagic. So I love when they do that. There's a great documentary that I always like make my guys watch called Side by Side that really tackles that and the development of the Red, and how the owner of Oakley just said, I'm gonna do my own thing. I'm gonna start my own camera company, and that's how Red cameras came about. And then you have guys like David Fincher and Steven Soderbergh who were like, I need these lightweight cameras. For instance, David Fincher on The Social Network got a Red camera and said, it's too heavy. I want to put the camera on the boats when they're rowing for the... Okay. And what he did, he's like, he called, the guy at Red and was like, I need them to be lightweight. Can we board them out? Can we just have no casing? He's like, I'll tell you what, we figured it out. It's got to be a carbon like alloy hybrid of a case. Okay. It cuts the weight in half. And David Fincher's like, when can I have it? He's like, it's on my desk right now. I'll send it to you tomorrow. Wow. So these guys are just going crazy with the camera development, man. Like not just Red, but Blackmagic, Ari's starting to get back into the digital game. So my dream camera is an Ari. So I'm so happy that you shot on an Ari Flex, man, because I'd love to shoot on an Ari 35 millimeter. That's like my dream camera, or an Ari Alexa Mini. We're progressing, Matt. So hopefully we get to shoot on one of those cameras soon.
I'm sure you will. You mentioned Soderbergh. I have a cool story about him. I was in the movie Traffic. I was also an extra in,
because they shot that here.
Yeah. He shot several scenes over in Las Cruces at the airport, and there was a scene where I'm an extra, and we're all gathered around Benicio del Toro, and it's the scene at the end of the movie where he's with. At the very end of the movie, where they take drugs off of a plane and they hold like a press conference. Mm-hmm. So in the movie, it's a montage, but we were shooting there all day for that scene, and Soderbergh was interesting to watch.
Wow.
He shoots a lot of his own stuff, So he's
a DP,
yeah. He would grab the camera, and the way he would use the long lenses, I thought that was really cool. It's something I try to emulate sometimes. He'd use like a long lens, or what traditionally you would use a shorter lens in a close proximity.
Sure.
But he gives that actor space, but he's still in a really tight frame.
Right.
And of course it creates kind of that movement, and obviously he had a certain style in that movie. But it was cool to see like a long lens being used for such close-up performances. It was interesting because the actor had all the room in the world.
He's an interesting filmmaker. I mean, like I remember hearing stories of when he shot Che in the jungles, and he was using a digital camera that would overheat, because essentially digital cameras are computers, right? So he would have to have bags of ice on the camera just so that it wouldn't overheat while they were rolling in these hot jungles that they were shooting in for Che. And he's definitely innovative, man. And you're right. He's been a DP not only for his own work, but for other filmmakers. Suddenly you see director of photography, Steven Soderbergh, and he's like, whoa, he's the big director, dude. He's doing DPing. But it just shows you, like, I think isn't he the filmmaker that recently is like, I'm shooting all my films on iPhone from this point forward.
I did hear about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't see the last one he shot on iPhone, but hey, if that's the thing he's obsessing, I'm with you, Robert. Like, when they obsess on these new forms of telling a story, I'm sold, man. I'm sold.
Agreed.
When it comes to the filmmaking process, is there anything you can tell filmmakers, actors alike, Robert, that are listening in, that may want to either jump into the journey, or they've, just like similar to your experience, they've got turned off because of one thing or another in this crazy industry that we love to be in? Is there anything you can tell these filmmakers and alike?
I think, if we're going to leave like with some closing thoughts, I would say that if you have, for whatever reason, like I did, just kind of fallen out of it, and it wasn't working for you, that's okay. I mean, that's okay. It's perfectly fine. It doesn't mean that it's not something that speaks to you, or not something that'll come back to you. When you feel that urge to get back into filmmaking, or if you're in it now but you don't feel like it's working for you, I can't stress enough how reps just make you better. And there's just no way around it in anything that you do in life, pretty much. It's just reps. So even if you're filming your cat, and if you're filming some things in your house in order to get sequence shots, or if you're experimenting with your camera settings, whatever it is that you can do to get reps to make you better, just do it. Sure. And again, if you're not feeling it right now, that's okay. It might come back to you. We're in a weird time.
Yeah.
But I just think it's never been a better time to be a digital filmmaker. And I think the barriers are down enough where people can get creative and have fun and make art.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful words. Before we close out the show, Robert, we have this thing called the good word of the day. I'm going to pass it over to Delao, and he'll explain to you what that is.
Okay.
All right. Word of the day. It's a segment that we've added to our podcast show just to expand everybody's vocabulary, language that we can use to expand thoughts, ideas. I always like to ask you, just guess a word of the day and see if you can guess the definition, and then just kind of go from there. So you may have heard this term tossed around, but do you know the definition of maverick?
Well, I understand what it means colloquially. I mean, I know the maverick is someone who bucks the rules, someone who doesn't play by the rules, someone who kind of does things counter to the system.
Exactly.
Wow, is that a first?
It's probably a first. It's a first. Somebody's gotten the word, which it's not too bad. The exact definition is an unorthodox or independent-minded person, and I kind of want to use the word because I think as filmmakers, as people who are trying to stay creative during this time, we have to be a bit unorthodox and independent-minded, because it almost feels like you could be in a situation where you have all these ideas, but because of your limitations, you jump out of the game or you jump out of the situation. But if you stay true to what your heart kind of says, and if you stay true to like where your passions kind of lead, I think that's the people who really shine in our society. So yeah, being mavericks of filmmaking, being mavericks right now and innovative, I think that's really important, and just something that I see in you, and I hope you see in us and the rest of the community around. So yeah.
I definitely do, and I'm honored that you guys feel the same way. So thank you.
It was an absolute blast to have the filmmaking maverick, Robert Holguin, on our podcast today. We want to thank everybody for listening in. We want to thank especially Robert for being on the show. It was a blast, man, and we hope to continue working with you. And we hope to continue collaborating with you, because you're a staple in our community.
Maybe next time we have you on the podcast, you could shred a little bit on those guitars.
Oh, you got it.
Hey, you know what? I look forward to, at some point, Robert, also having you on the Watchtower, since you're such a film lover.
Yes, that would be very...
We'd love to maybe do a Coen Brothers or Scorsese film, and I'll have you on. We'll have you on so we could talk about some films.
I'd love that. All right, guys.
Well, that about does it for these towering filmmakers. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see you on set.